gotta go pink, if there's a choice. Oh, see, you've got, the fuzzy.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
It's like a Russian's hat is kind of how I think of it, like one of those like fluff balls. But my husband picked it out for me. So I said, you do the research. I'll just put it on.
Great for sound.
That's good. So, yeah, we're all podcasters showing off all the microphone equipment. So it's great. Lily, welcome to the show and welcome everybody. Our guest, Lily, how do you say your name?
Lily Allen-Duenas.
Okay. For those of you podcasters out there, you want to ask that before you hit record. Just as an example that I was giving everybody. And
good educational moment right there. Nice.
Exactly. It's like always a subtext of how to podcast, out there. There's not enough of them. We got to get more. So welcome to the show. And this is really, really exciting. I also am really grateful to welcome a co-host for today, which is Kathleen. Welcome, Kathleen Brennan.
Thanks.
From the On the Blue Couch podcast, friend and fellow podcaster. And now, Lily, you podcast as well.
Yeah. I'm the founder and host of the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast.
Great. How long have you been doing that?
A full year. My podcast anniversary was last week. This is what's up.
Are you good at remembering anniversaries for like special episode type of things, or I am not.
Question.
I am not good at that. So
I would say I'm okay at it. My episodes are every Friday, and I'm also on episode 50. So I thought 52 would be my year anniversary, but I did a 10-minute intro, welcome to the podcast, 2 weeks before doing my first episode. So it just was kind of like luck of the draw that my anniversary is not 52. It's at week 50.
50 out of 52 after a year. That's pretty good.
Very consistent.
Yeah, I only missed my release dates would have been on Christmas itself and then on New Year's itself. So I just took those 2 weeks off of producing content just because it was the actual holidays. So
makes sense. Oh, great. Well, welcome. We're going to be talking today about some of the ways that you integrate yoga and physiology and diet and some of those things into healing. But let's let you start out. What do you want to tell us about you and the way you work, and who are you anyway?
Oh yeah, who am I? Good question. That's a good question to ask yourself.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go there. Human being, a human, not a human doing. We can go deep.
Wow, it's already deep.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for having me. So excited to be here and on the show. I'm Lily Allen-Duenas, and as I mentioned, I'm the podcast host of the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast and also the founder of the Wild Yoga Tribe. And we're a community of global yoga teachers, energy workers, meditation, people, guides, or people who are just interested in it. It's just a kind of a really beautiful worldwide community of people coming together and wanting to go a little deeper into spirituality, mindfulness, different energy practices. And I love that it really is every corner of the globe. I mean, from Egypt to Estonia, from Greece to Ghana, like we're all in it together. And I really love that. I love that. In the pandemic, when I launched my podcast, I was thinking, man, we all are so isolated. And I usually travel and I teach in other countries, or I do more retreats or vipassanas or other experiences that are global in nature. But I wanted to do something that could still be with that community and honor that community and charge and kind of send energy into it, even though we couldn't actually physically get together. So it's been really exciting to do that. Yeah.
Right.
How did you discover yoga? Where did that begin for you?
That's actually a fun question because I came to it when actually over half of my life ago, which feels silly. I'm 31 and I found it. I first came to the mat when I was 16. It just was at a local gym in California. My high school friend's mom went to this gym. She went to the gym sometimes and said, hey, there's this thing called yoga. I vividly remember making that joke about yogurt yoga. Like, wait, what is this thing? Is it yogurt? Like, is there yogurt going to be served after? I don't know why, but it was just that 16-year-old sense of humor, which is so great. And I wish we all had it still. Like, let's bring that back.
But they do serve yogurt after, right?
Many flavors. If there's not more than 5, it's not a real yoga class. So I started practicing, as I mentioned, when I was 16, but it was just, taking 2 classes in a year because it was just kind of coming to it. But it felt immediately like the first, 5 minutes of the class, like coming home, like something I was remembering and something that felt so just essential kind of to my being and I'd never encountered anything like it that could actually get my busy mind to calm down and just kind of tap into that sense of stillness. I'd tried meditation before at a YMCA summer camp, which was super cool. I was like 12, 13, and doing a week of morning meditation classes, which also is such a powerful tradition. But for me, yoga really as a gateway to meditation. So when I went to university, I started practicing 4 times a week. I found some studios that do great student discounts. If anyone listening out there is a student, most yoga studios I know it maybe seems expensive, but there's usually very affordable monthly, half off or more than half off rates. And so when I graduated, I moved abroad to Greece for a little while to teach art. And then when I came back and was a marketing manager for 4 years, and I just kind of got burnt out after nonprofit life and then serving on multiple boards as directors and just being as involved in my community and friends and relationships as possible. But I just got this feeling of being a little burned out, but very unfulfilled, like something wasn't quite right. So I spent a whole year of just meditating on it, asking myself that question and just trying to wait for the answer to come, not rushing that answer. I really wanted to rush it. I want to change. I want something different. But I tried my hardest to be patient with myself and really listen. And so when this, voice inside of me said, you're meant to help people find wellness from within and really heal and empower them to make, healing choices in their lives. And by being a yoga teacher was my gateway, my door for that. And so after hearing that voice, within 2 weeks, I had a plane ticket booked to Kathmandu, a yoga teacher training, my deposit down, and I'd had a month approved sabbatical from work to go just see if that was right for me. And within 24 hours, I knew, oh yeah, this is me. So then after 3 months, sold everything, boxed everything up, and moved to Cambodia, got a job teaching yoga on an island resort. And then that was the gateway again to a crazy few years of traveling and teaching and learning.
What would you say are some of the benefits people start to experience? I know as I'm thinking about this too, when you go into a new exercise program, if people are thinking of it as an exercise program, you're talking about a lot deeper than that. But I know even if I start jogging, which I have done and do occasionally, there's a recovery time of like, well, it's this long until it's fun. It's this long until I feel like it's helping instead of hurting me, or whatever. There's a transition time. But what do you see people when they're new to it going through?
Yeah, great question. And I would like to point out too that there's so many different types of yoga asana practice, the physical. So if somebody is very new to yoga and they immediately walk into a Ashtanga, very powerful, or a power yoga class, they will have a totally different understanding of what a yoga class is versus if they go to a yin yoga class where you hold a yoga pose and it's always on the ground. You're always seated, usually for about, 3 minutes each pose, very calming. So when people say, oh, I don't like yoga, I went once, I like to say, oh, so you tried one blueberry and you decided you don't like fruit. Like you have to try an apple and a banana and a strawberry. Like you have to try the different types to really find what resonates. Just like you wouldn't just play basketball and say, oh, I hate all sports. Or you got to try more. Yeah.
No, but that's good. How do people, just through sampling, or would you suggest somebody looks at the types, or how would you select what's right for you?
I think everybody has such a different approach, and I love that because some people feel really comfortable doing a few YouTube classes first. So if you are looking at a local yoga studio and you see they offer power yoga, yin yoga, hatha, vinyasa, flow, like whatever these words are, yeah, they're literally in another language, literally. And so when people are like, I don't know what that is, it's like, of course you don't. You shouldn't know it. Don't feel stupid. Don't feel like hesitant or confused. It is literally a different language. And so that's why I think kind of checking out a vinyasa class on YouTube, trying a 20-minute, a 30-minute, and checking out a hatha and seeing which one feels better to you. You can also just Google a little bit and say, oh, a hatha class is slower than a vinyasa. Okay, so you have a little bit frame of reference. Or there's yoga studios that offer, many, many different classes. And usually first week is free or first week is $5. And then you just kind of try a few different classes and see what works. But I'm really excited. I'm going to launch a free webinar course thing on Teachable, where if you're totally new to yoga, you have no idea what's going on, it's just for free. It'll be a few modules so you can be walked through what is the different types of yoga, what to expect when you come in a class. Do you bring your water bottle? Do you wear socks? Just questions I think that people have popped into my DMs with. And I love, love, love working with new yoga teacher or new yoga students. If I'm the teacher that gets to introduce you to yoga, you literally gave me a Christmas gift, basically. It's a huge deal for me. So if anyone has questions, reach out, Wild Yoga Tribe, anywhere and everywhere. I'm happy to be with you.
Well, and I know that you have knowledge around the kind of science and the magic of what's actually happening internally as people move through yoga. And I'd love to hear just more about kind of your perspective on, what's happening when people are coming in stressed, and as they evolve through the yoga practice, what's happening that's helping them to heal in all aspects of their self.
Thanks, Kathleen. Great question, because yoga is amazing. And from the first class, from the first 5 minutes, maybe, you'll notice a difference in your sympathetic or in your nervous system, because we're always kind of in this fight, flight, emails and stimulation and honking and podcasts. And there's always so much going on for us that we're usually pretty activated in the Western world on a day-to-day basis. So that's our sympathetic when we're focused, awake, active, thinking, working. Think about how many hours in a day we probably are more in that zone. Whereas parasympathetic is, these amazing optimistic functionings of the body get to happen, like reproduction, like the actual systems are functioning for digestive, immune functions, and memory consolidation. So people say that parasympathetic is rest and digest, but it does go a little bit deeper than that into these, housekeeping activities and optimistic functioning. So that's why naturally our bodies are supposed to kind of pendulum swing between parasympathetic and sympathetic every 88 minutes to 4 hours. That's kind of the scientific ballpark. But really, we as a Western society, we're not swinging every 88 minutes to 4 hours. We're just locked into sympathetic. And some people with high stress, high anxiety, just all of this pressure we have in our day to day, that means we're to be locked in with like an IV drip of adrenaline going on in our body. And that's tough.
Yeah.
And
we also tend to ramp up a lot faster than we ramp down. I mean, right? I mean, there's an evolutionary safety response to that, I think. I always like to say you're going to notice and get really interested in the snarling bear on a hike, and you might not notice the beautiful things and sunsets and everything that will actually calm you down, but your brain is going to make sure you don't walk by the bear without noticing it, right? So, we get into that, and we don't naturally relax really fast or anything like that.
No, but it's amazing even what one huge deep breath and closing our eyes and just really having maybe for 30 seconds or just 3 deep breaths, that is enough to kind of deregulate a little bit, just kind of come back down. But it does involve a little bit more time to really tap into and sink into the parasympathetic to get the pendulum to swing the other way. But with the deep breath, it's like taking that step or inching the pendulum closer. I think you alluded to one of the issues with the snarling bear, I like to refer to it as a tiger, is that our brain treats all stress like we're being chased by a tiger, whether it's a thought, whether it's an email, whether it's something scary we just saw on TV. It's all going to be quote unquote paper tigers then, these non-life threatening stressors that cause the body to kick into high alert. There's no low gear for the nervous system. There just isn't. We don't have a red light, green light, yellow, or it's just full pedal. It's full high red alert. There's no orange alert, amber alert, gold alert. There's no color scheme. It's just full.
It's hard.
Full alert.
It's hard too, because the same things that trigger oftentimes are hard to do it's hard to do my homework while I'm being chased by a tiger, right? And even I'll be honest, I mean, even if I was hiking even around here and I saw a tiger snarling in the forest, my brain would go, "Get out of here! Panic, panic!" Way before it would say, "What? How did a tiger get into the forest in Utah? That doesn't make any sense." I'd have to be a little calm to even ask that question, right? So
You've never seen one of those Utah tigers? I know all about them.
Yeah, man, they hide really well, so you don't see them very often until they get you. But so
Well, anyway, I think it's a good reminder because I sometimes forget that it's okay to have stress and actually we're meant to, and that it's okay to swing back and forth, and that there's actually good kinds of stress that kind of get us moving. But this part that you're talking about is the being locked in it and the ways to kind of, I guess, heal or get out of it. And so with the breath, like how do you walk people through like even a breathing exercise? Because for the purpose of this podcast, I know that people say to themselves, I intend to breathe, or I'm going to do it today. I know it's good for me, but then just don't end up doing it. And how do you set it up for people that like to really get into it and be more intentional about it?
Amazing. And I think that's such a huge battle that we all face. It's not unique to any person who says, "Oh, I was planning on breathing better. I was planning on, those intentions are so beautiful. And I'm glad they're there." It is getting to the next step of actually executing or actually putting it on the to-do list. It's funny, I chose the word executing. Isn't that a little violent? But I would say
I knew what you meant.
it's mission objective thinking, though, right? It's executing a plan.
Yeah. So I think step one is really learning how important it is to deregulate. So step one is just kind of acknowledging, okay, the day-to-day stress, some of it can be, help us get moving, help us, accomplish our tasks. There is so much value. Fear saves our life, and stress and fear can be put in the same zone and bucket in ways for the purpose of this conversation. But when it comes to the actual the physiological response to stress, understanding how dangerous that is in the long run, really saying, oh my gosh, that's a huge deal. That's not just, oh, I was stressed for 5 days in a row, no big deal. Realizing that you are kind of damaging and deteriorating a lot of your body over time. Like I'll just walk through a few so your adrenal glands that are on top of your little kidneys, they are pumping adrenaline to give you that like get up and go. It can be the equivalent to like 3 cups of coffee, like if you get really stressed. And it actually is for the whole day if you are in sympathetic and IV drip all day. That's why anxiety, the feeling of shakiness, startling easy, having a mind that just won't quite stop, or maybe you have trouble going to sleep. These are all linked to an overactivation of the stress response. So actually, if we're talking then about weight or about how our body processes foods, the glucose, the fats, and the proteins that are released from fatty tissues. So we don't actually have time to digest. The cells need to do their job, like running from a tiger. And so really quickly, our body it's like a little pickpocket. It kind of goes in quickly and it grabs whatever it needs to get your body ready to fight or to flight. So you can't, like I like to think of it, you can't digest your lunch while you're running. So if this happens all day long, if you're stressed all day long, this means that you have muscle waste. You have extra glucose floating around in your circulatory system, which leads to circulatory disorders and strokes, clots, type 2 diabetes, all linked to an overactivation of the stress response. So I just mentioned clotting. It's also important to know that you start producing and releasing clotting agents and factors into your blood, and that increases your inflammation response, because if a tiger bites you, you don't want to hemorrhage. But if you get an email, apparently your body says, I don't want to hemorrhage either from my email. So that kind of has a thicker blood. We have a little sludgy blood with all that extra clotting agents in our blood. I mean, I can go into what the pupils do, what's happening in our brain activity, the bronchial passages, like we can go down that rabbit hole, but just, for the sake of our conversation, I'd love for your listeners, I'm hoping after hearing, a couple minutes of me rattling off a few facts, they think, oh, my goodness, okay, my entire system, not just my nervous system, but The stress is actually affecting your musculoskeletal, your respiratory, your cardiovascular, your endocrine, your gastrointestinal, your nervous, and your reproductive systems. It's really damaging and kind of slowly wearing away as we're locked into the stress response. We're not swinging. We're not giving our body time to heal, process, flush. It's all just kind of locked in there. And so since it is such a big deal, then I hope that's kind of the little, that little push, the little catalyst, the little impetus to help people kind of get a little more serious about incorporating some breath work or some 5 minutes of meditation or 15 minutes of yoga in the morning. Like, this can save your life. It can prevent disease. It can help you come into not just wellness in the terms of, I feel well today, but well in the future. And so walking people then through a few techniques that they can incorporate, recommending some apps, Thich Nhat Hanh's Plum Village. There's an app he has, and he did pass away this year in 2021, and that was, a huge loss of a bodhisattva for us in this world, but wonderful that his app and his teachings and his books and everything live on. So Plum Village is an app that you can download for free, and you can set a timer that once an hour, and it's very specific. It can be from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It can be 9 a.m. to 5. You can set the time. It's specific, but once an hour, a little beautiful Tibetan bowl will just ding, ding. And then that encourages you to just, that three bells, 3 ding, 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 just close your eyes and breathe deeply. And I love having that just set on my phone. So no matter what's going on, I just close my eyes and take 3 deep breaths whenever I hear the bell.
I had one of those on a computer once when I had a job where I sit at the computer more, than I do now, but where it would ding you could set it to go randomly or whatever, and it was a mindfulness alert sort of thing. It's a very helpful type of thing. I think, I don't know, it'd be interesting to get your reaction to this, but I think that part of this is the difficulty people have still in believing and appreciating the connection between physiology and psychology, right? And thinking that our stress and our thoughts are somehow separate. And listeners of this show know we talk a lot about this, that when people say, is it a medical problem or is it a psychological problem? Is it an emotional problem or is it a medical problem? And it's like, those are all medical problems. Your brain and your emotions are generated inside your body, right? So I think people don't link that up sometimes. So it's interesting to hear you talk about the real, even dangerous link that can be there if we don't attend to it.
Yeah, and it's kind of scary, isn't it, to think that if it's emotional problem, a mental, a medical, if it's all tied in together like that, I don't blame anyone for not wanting to kind of accept that, because it means you don't get to just take a pill. You don't just get to do yoga 15 minutes a day and call it good. Like, there's a lot of elements to being healthy and well, and education, I think, comes first. And it's also not a one size fits all. That's, I think, very important point, that what works for me doesn't necessarily work for you, but there is science-based facts and research out there and tons of studies. So you can gather some ideas and some proven techniques, and then just see if that's what suits you and your needs best.
Mm-hmm. And how do you approach diet? I noticed that, you educate about like a plant-based diet, and I'd love to hear more about how you think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, not one size fits all. So I am a vegan. I'm plant-based. I have wonderful friends who are raw food nutritionalists. And today I had a great call with someone called the Health Hero, and he does a lot with raw foods, but also living foods. And that was very interesting to learn more about sprouting, about sprouted beans, sprouted alfalfa, growing that in your house, so you can try to have this awake, alive, living food more in your diet. So again, not a one size fits all, always more to learn. And I think also acknowledging each step you can take to have more whole foods, just, nothing with a label on it, nothing with the ingredients and processing on it. I think we all can intuitively realize at some level, right, that if it's gone through 3 machines, a bleaching processor, 7 additives, 2 preservatives, 2 color enhancers, and 7 food dyes, that maybe it's a little bit harder for our body to process than an apple. Like, I think that's intuitive enough. I think we can all maybe agree on that. I would hope, but I think I always try to help people, not just with kind of little education or little ideas or inspiration, but also saying, okay, what step do you want to take? Like, do you want to try to do, like, what's your goal and what's realistic for your habits and your flavor palette, your family, your partner? It's with nutrition coaching and vegan, plant-based kind of consultations, it's not just about, okay, here's 5 recipes, give them a try. There's also psychology around food, and kind of when you think something's taken away from you, how do you deal with it? There's societal and familial pressures. When you say, okay, I'm going to go more plant-based to your family, what are they going to say to that? And do you want to talk about some strategies and ideas for how to respond? Because it's not always just a smooth little, oh, I'm going to do it and it's going to be super easy. It's not necessarily easy. And I think I want to help people understand, you're not alone, and there's tips and tricks. And I've learned a lot along my way and with my certifications and my journey just about whole food, plant food. But as I mentioned, always learning.
Yeah, there's a lot of those elements, and I think that's why most dietary programs and most diet programs that are based around weight loss have terrible results when you do longitudinal studies and long-term effects. Even the most successful ones don't tend to work with a higher percentage, and they don't tend to work for a long term because the focus is wrong. And you're talking about like a goal. If you're setting it's different to set a goal that, boy, I want to drop a few pounds than it is to set a goal that I want to eat different, and I just do, and forever, versus that kind of a change.
Yeah. And I think a realistic goal to say is, I don't want to get diagnosed with cancer. Like, I know maybe that sounds very extreme to some of your listeners, saying, oh my gosh, she's linking not eating, plant-based foods to not getting cancer. But I would encourage your listeners just to maybe give that a Google, like check out some of the studies and the research out there that have linked, all of the carcinogens in our foods, because you are what you eat. I know that sounds so silly, but if you think about actually putting a blueberry in your mouth and remembering it literally disappears into your body and then is incorporated into your cells, like, you are what you eat because it becomes your body. And so I think setting goals that have to do with long-term health are more successful than wanting to drop 1 pant size. And I also love encouraging people to set a goal that doesn't have to do with them. Saying, I want to be at my daughter's wedding. I want to be healthy enough that I can walk down that aisle and I'm not going to be hooked up to anything. Or, there's a lot of prevention we can do. And I think that's really key to kind of come at it with that knowledge, just knowing if you can set a goal that doesn't have to do with yourself, statistically, you will be a little bit more successful.
That's a great insight. It reminds me, I produce a podcast with Dr. Erica Harris. She does this podcast, Rise Today, inspirational, and she tells a story. She's a double lung transplant and cancer survivor, and she tells a story of looking out the window of her hospital and seeing a grandma pushing a stroller and saying, well, that's probably, she assumed anyway, a grandma. I don't know if she went and tracked her down, but and saying to herself, well, that's me. I want to be like that. I want to walk with a grandkid someday. And she credits a lot of her survival to that, actually, although obviously there's medical things that had to be done, but how that attitude kind of drove her to believe that she could do that. So it's really interesting when you say that. It's a really good tidbit for everybody out there, is goals focused on others and including others. So it makes a lot of sense. I like that a lot. Huh.
Yeah. I also don't know. Have you guys ever read anything by Gretchen Rubin from The Happiness Project?
Yeah, I saw her documentary. Is it the documentary also? Happiness was based on that, I think.
I hope. I mean, I actually
really
haven't watched that documentary, but
yeah, but I'm familiar with it.
Cool. So she wrote a book called The 4 Tendencies. And that I also think is really important in goal setting as well, or developing new habits. So the 4 Tendencies basically is, I'm going to make a gesture with my arms for those of you who get to watch the Patreon version. So it's a quadrant of 4, and it's all with how you deal with expectations. Is it internal or external? So there's 4 different types of people. Are you an upholder? So internal and external expectations are super important for you. That means if someone tells you to do it and you get on board with that, or you're telling yourself you need to do it, you'll get on board with that. Those are the upholders. It's not hard. Once they decide to do something, they'll do it, whether you tell them or they tell themselves. The obliger will only do it and really follow through if someone's holding them accountable. Someone else expects them to do it. They're like, okay, I got to do it. They said it, but making that time and prioritizing something for themselves maybe feels selfish or feels like, nope, I can't choose me. I got to choose what they need. And if someone's telling you externally, I need it, that's the obliger. Questioners prioritize their own expectations. So they need to decide, they need to be their own accountability partner. Rebels are the trickiest of the bunch. External and internal are not important. So they need to usually find something very bespoke, a bespoke strategy that really will help them with their goals, whether it's just the awareness of saying, hey, I'm a rebel. So that means that my expectations and others don't matter to me. So I need to figure out something that can work. I think the more aware we are of our own tendencies and habits and brain patterns, which is amazing to learn about in meditation and observing your mind. But you can also read Gretchen Rubin's The 4 Tendencies, or about the Enneagram, or, do a golden personality profiler and just learn more about you and how you have expectations, you set goals, how you process, how you relate to people. You're just more self-knowledge is going to be your friend on the journey to wellness.
I found clients that have taken that assessment and it validates their own experience. And then it's like, okay, yeah, this is true, puts more words to it. And then it's like, okay, let's come up with a plan now. Like you're going to need more people in your life, for example, to help hold you accountable, or you're able to do this on your own. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I found that to be really helpful for people.
Absolutely. I think when we say it, we name it, we claim it, then we can feel, deal, and heal. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
And it works better when you rhyme it. I found too, at least to remember, but also I think it just works better.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that a challenge to try to rhyme the rest of the podcast? Because I don't know how long I'll last.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, within the few minutes we have left. In fact, maybe you could work that.
Well, I wanted to kind of talk about chakra healing, and I'm trying to sit here and think, how am I going to put some rhyming in here? I'm not quite sure.
Chakra is a hard word to rhyme, but
chakra,
let's try it.
Chakra. I know we have a couple more minutes, but do we have time to talk a little bit about chakra healing?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So how do you think, like, for people out there who've never heard of, or may have heard of chakras, how do you explain it to people? Like how that shows up in their body or their field of being a person?
Yeah, I love talking about chakras. And what's amazing is that, okay, so we'll go back one step back, is that chakras are ancient, Eastern knowledge of different energy centers in our bodies. So there's these classic 7 that we talk about, but there's also small chakra centers in the palms of our hands and our feet. And there's different centers in the body, but this 7 classic is what we really focus on in books or in conversation. So it follows your spine. And what's amazing is now that Western medicine has studied or has started to study, chakras, it's like there's these huge nucleus of nerves at every single point. It's amazing how it's kind of scientifically backed that these are heavy duty actual energy centers, whether it's for, processing or, our reproductive system or our digestive or our cardiac, it's actually at the system center points. So the 7 centers, it's going to start at your root. So of your pelvic bowl, which is technically the perineum, and that's the Muladhara chakra. And so each chakra goes straight up the spine to the top of your head, which was Sahasrara, the top chakra. And each one is associated with a color, with a symbol, with a sound, with a stone, with a smell. Like they have all these things, but mainly it has to do with kind of a huge part of our journey of being human, whether that's the base chakra of home and safety and stability and security. And if that's out of balance, then that can manifest with high anxiety and fear based, or you can be really, really clingy and codependent. You know, there's different ways that it can swing if it's over functioning or under functioning. And so it's just amazing to learn more about the chakras, as well as one of these, if you want to look at it this way, as a way of knowing ourselves better, of saying, oh, that could be an imbalance, or that could be, that's why that always has been a huge, tight part of my body. Has your hips always been like, I can't sit cross-legged. It kicks my butt. I can't do it. Then that might be a problem with your root chakra, because your hips are so tight because there's an imbalance, or you have issues around feeling safe, or maybe you have a really upset stomach all the time and you struggle with self-esteem. Then that's an imbalance in your third chakra, your solar plexus, right around the belly button. And that's going to manifest physically as well as emotionally, mentally, all of these levels, all of the koshas, all the sheaths of our energy system. So then working with yourself or with an energy healer to try to get that back in balance. Reiki practitioners, I'm a master healer myself. You can do crystal healing. You can do so many different things, even if it's a meditation based or a yoga class. I teach whole yoga classes based on balancing the chakras. So it's amazing what we can do, and it is a great way of understanding the self better.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
My first intro, and this was shared with me by a client to chakras, and I'll throw this out there for anybody who is intimidated. You can check out, there's an episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, if you're familiar. It's and they have an episode called The Guru. I've had to look it up and mention it to people. It's actually where the protagonist learns about this and goes through a very good introductory, actually, and then a springing off point to actually talk to, teachers and people who do that like you. It's been very interesting to see people go through that, and like you said, it's an interesting way to focus, just like from that psychological perspective. But then there's just the underlying feeling of belief and investment into that, and people really seem to get a lot out of it. So,
I mean, it's ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
It's ancient, and it's amazing how things that were written about 10,000 years ago, how science is like, oh, that is where
By the
each
way.
major nucleus of nerve sits. It's like, well, okay, And one of my favorite stories in the same vein is that I love that the Dalai Lama loves science. He just totally thinks it's fascinating, but he was at a quantum physics convention, and he was sitting with a bunch of scientists, and they were saying something, and he was going, yes, like agreeing with everything. And they looked at him and said, how do you know this without studying physics? And he looked at them and went, how do you know this without meditating? It's amazing. It is amazing how East and West have really come together, I think, in the last, few decades, and really kind of strengthened each other's knowledge. And you don't have to believe anything you don't want to believe. I don't want you to believe in chakras. I don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. I don't want to push anything on anyone, but if it's something that resonates and you're curious about, and you think there might be something of value there, like let's talk, let's dive in. But if it's not for you, awesome. I'm so happy it's not for you too, because then something else will be. And that's cool too.
That's something I really like about your approach. And I tend to gravitate to guests on the show who have that attitude of meeting people where they're at, individualizing. I think that's very important. Well, just as we're about to wrap up for today, I like to ask guests who come on if they have any kind of a charity or a nonprofit or anything that they would plug. It can be related to what we're talking about, but it doesn't have to be. Do you have any charities that are near and dear to you?
Oh, thanks for bringing that up. I've definitely had, the joy and the privilege of working with United Way or the State of Women or different organizations in the past. But I would say that right now there is so many different communities and cultures in need. I did a yoga class for Ukraine and for specifically serving the marginalized community there. So I can drop a link and hopefully you can share that in the show notes. I think that anything we can do for Ukraine or BLM or Planned Parenthood or wherever anybody wants to donate right now, I feel that there's so many people in need. But there is a special organization that is in Nepal, and they specifically deliver meals and food to monks who, everything with monasteries because of COVID, where it was hit kind of hard. So it was really a great opportunity as well to kind of be able to serve people who have nothing, and they have no way of making money, no way of anything. And so that was a really good one I got involved with during the pandemic, but it's something I would love to bring up because it's probably not on people's field of radar.
I hadn't thought about that community of monasteries and things. Yeah, totally. That's very interesting. Thank you. Plug and tell everybody your podcast, your website, where they can find you one more time.
Thanks. Yeah. So wildyogatribe.com, the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. And I'm on social media wherever you are. Hopefully I'm there too. Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the good stuff at Wild Yoga Tribe. So I would love to see you guys interact, react, hang out, jive, jam, whatever you want to do. Let's hang out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I noticed that you did a lot of cool retreats, like in these really beautiful locations. Do you have any places that like you have upcoming that you really want to go to and teach people?
Oh, I love that question. And so I was looking at Peru pretty heavily. I had some meetings scheduled and was really excited to try to do something in the Sacred Valley. I'm not sure if that's going to work for 2022. And so looking more at a few other spots. So just check out my website, Wild Yoga Tribe. Nothing's officially announced, but I do have a sign-up form if anyone wants to get a notification or a ping. And also on social media, I'll post about it.
Kathleen, do you want to mention where people can find you?
So Instagram at this point, at Kathleen R. Brennan. And then I do have episodes from On the Blue Couch podcast on my website, onthebluecouch.com, as well as iTunes. So
great.
That's where I'm at this point.
Wonderful. And I guess I just want to plug Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now that it's on my mind, I'll have to go watch it, so everyone else should too. And mostly follow us on social media at Break a Brain on Twitter. You can go to at Brainiacs Ahoy on Instagram. It's a new thing. Hopefully I remember to post on it as well. And thank you once again so much, Lily. And Kathleen, thank you also for co-hosting today.
Of course, yeah. This is fun.
I learned a lot from everybody.
Yeah, it was a joy to be with you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Court and Parts Podcast Network. To listen to more Court and Parts shows, visit courtandarts.com.